Hello and welcome back. I understand this is not the most flattering lighting, but I wanted to look like an alien abduction was happening without being completely green. So, so this is the real life story of a couple called Barney and Betty Hill, who claimed they were abducted by aliens while driving home from a 3-day getaway. So Barney was a postal worker and Betty was a social worker, so they were both very hardworking people. They had been married for 16 months and they'd never actually gone on a proper honeymoon, so they decided to take a spontaneous trip, 3-day trip, to wherever it was they went. So they were driving home down a windy road through the White Mountains in New Hampshire. Well, they set off their journey at 10 o'clock in the evening, or 10 o'clock at night, whatever. So they were all alone on the road. They hadn't seen another car for miles. So it was pitch black, as you can imagine, apart from obviously the lights on the road or whatever. And they just noticed this light in the sky and they felt like it was following them, because wherever they weaved, that would weave. And you know that it would disappear behind the clouds and the mountains, and it would just go, boop, I'm still here. And they'd be like, what is that? When they got home in the early hours of the morning, they felt relieved, but they also felt quite strange. It was said that they felt dirty, and Barney's shoes were all scuffed and Betty's dress was torn. Both their watches had stopped working and they were missing 2 hours of their evening. Neither of them remembered what happened during these 2 missing hours. So this happened on the last day of the trip. Like I said, they were on their way home. Like I said, it was 10 p.m. when they left Vermont. They went straight from a diner and headed towards home in Portsmouth. They estimated they should make it home around 2 in the morning. They originally dismissed the light they saw as anything from just being a helicopter or a star or a satellite. But as they kept driving, they soon realised that the light looked as if it was weaving, like I said, the same sort of movements of the car. So you can imagine the car's just like down the road, and then this light is also like, and as I said before, it would disappear behind the trees, the mountains, whatever, and they'd probably think, oh, it's gone. And then suddenly it would reappear again. They'd see it in their rearview mirror or their wing mirrors and just think, what the hell is this? So they didn't want to play the guessing game any longer, and they decided to just pull the car over and have a little look-see. They happened to have some binoculars in their car. I feel like during that time, everyone just had binoculars lying around. This was the 70s. So it's like, I don't know, binoculars were just a thing. It was Betty that actually took a look and saw what she thought looked like a spinning object. She told her husband there was no way in hell that this was a satellite or a star or a helicopter or a bird wearing a head torch. But they just got back in the car. They continued their drive home, and they were now 70 miles from where they left at the diner until the object was hovering roughly 100 feet above them. Not necessarily directly above their car or anything, but like just, 100 feet from the ground sort of thing. Barney stopped the car and got out. He was absolutely fed up with this shit. He had a handgun in his pocket that he had under the seat of his car, so he got it out from under the seat of his car, put it in his pocket, got out of the car. Betty stayed in the car. He kept the engine running, and he ran into a field that was like pitch black to look at this object. Barney said it was as big as a jet, but as round and as flat as a pancake. Probably wasn't as flat as a pancake because we're talking like this, but I get what he's saying. Behind the windows that were just in rows, like it was just one big window sort of thing, there were some beings in grey uniforms that looked like they were looking straight at him. They're probably like, what's this puny human gonna do? Barney also remembered thinking that what he was seeing could not possibly be real. I mean, you wouldn't think that was real, would you? Realistically. He tried to reach for his gun, but he felt like something was physically stopping him. Like, it wasn't just like emotionally like, oh, I couldn't hurt these people. It was, I actually cannot move my hand to get my gun. And also a voice told him not to put down his binoculars, which is really random. It's like, keep looking at me. And then a thought suddenly occurred to him. We're going to be captured. He absolutely legged it back to the car as fast as he possibly could, hysterically yelling. I can imagine just, "Yeah, stay in the car, we're gonna get taken." Something like that. I'm not taking the piss, I'm just saying I imagine that's what happened. Thankfully, he left the car running so he could make a really quick getaway. This didn't help though. I mean, how can you get away from an alien essentially following you in the sky? You can't. They suddenly heard some beeps from the boot of their car, which is really random, and they felt like instantly drowsy. So they were just like, and then they passed out, and then they woke up 2 hours later, 30 miles further on from this destination. There were kind of two different stories here. So one said that happened basically, and the other one said that they woke up at home the next morning and then obviously discovered, oh, my dress is this, my shoes are this. But either way, in both scenarios, they lost time and tried to figure out what happened. So potato, potato. It was also said that Barney felt a great need to examine his lower half. And they both had a feeling of a strange presence. Like, I suppose they both felt like they'd been violated, really, by some strange being. Betty took to the library to get some books out on UFOs and things like that to get some answers. She also discovered a UFO group called National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, NECAP. She also was quite concerned about radiation, so she reported the object to the Air Force. Over the next few years, the couple was plagued with stress, anxiety, terrible nightmares, disturbing dreams it was described as, but same thing. And Barney even developed an ulcer, I assume a stomach ulcer, from all the stress and anxiety. They eventually got help from a psychiatrist called Benjamin Simon. He specialised in hypnosis. Apparently hypnosis was quite a popular treatment during that era. So it wasn't unusual for them to try something like that. They had weekly sessions, and over the next few months, they slowly started to piece together what happened to them. With Simon's help, obviously. By having hypnosis, they were able to unlock memories that their subconscious, or their conscious, I don't know, didn't want to access, basically. So this is what they figured out happened, okay? The object landed on their car. So I was wrong. It landed on their car and put them to sleep. The uniformed beings they saw in the craft led them up a ramp into the craft, which is weird because they were knocked out and unconscious. So how did they walk? Anyway, maybe they were in like a trance. Barney and Betty were then separated and tested. They were told to get onto a metal table, take all their clothes off. The beings then took nail clippings, plucked out their hairs. I mean, not all their hairs. They didn't like wake up the next day and be like, "I'm bald!" And they peeled off bits of their skin, which is gross. These were then put onto like a glass slide, like a Petri dish, I imagine, for inspection later, probably. They also put needles into their limbs and their heads. Betty remembered also a needle being put into her stomach, which acted as a pregnancy test. Very interesting. Can you imagine if that was the way you tested if you were pregnant? Absolutely disgusting. So there was one being, I'm just going to call them a being instead of an alien, who just stood observing everything, basically. And they both assumed that this must be the leader. As we know, the leader doesn't do the hard work, they just stand and watch. So apparently they were quite excited, the beings, to find out that Barney's teeth could be removed. And apparently Betty laughed. You silly sausages. They're dentures, so they're fake teeth, which the beings were sort of like, what? They didn't quite understand what that was all about, really. Probably because they brushed their teeth twice a day and they were fine. So there was at one point Betty was alone with the leader and she asked where the craft had flown. So while she was under hypnosis with Simon, fast forward obviously, she drew a star map which the leader had showed her to show her this is where we are, whatever. And then years later, a lady called Marjorie Fish tried to figure out where the beings came from by reading the star map. she concluded that it was the star system Zeta Reticuli. Very confusing. So basically, Betty was like, where are we? The alien was like, look at this map. And then Betty remembered the map, and under hypnosis years later drew the map. And then years after that, Marjorie was like, I know where that is, and told us. Zeta Reticuli. So yeah, that was pretty much that. So even though Barney and Betty were not the first people to report being abducted or to see an alien craft or whatever, it seems to be the most believable and widely reported story for a number of years. So they basically base alien encounters and abductions all on this incident, and that sort of has changed people's perception, I suppose. Although my perception has always been, well, my perception has been you get like beamed up, but my perception has been you get abducted and you get probed. It's just so stereotypical. Maybe the aliens should start doing something a bit different, like maybe like a questionnaire, like asking you questions, be like, so what's going on? Just trying to get to know us, you know, rather than violation. And they still have a nice plaque in Portsmouth as well about their experience. It says the Betty and Barney Hill incident, and then describes basically what happened, which is quite cool. But I'd also, yeah, I don't know. I was about to say if I was them, I don't know if I'd want that, but then I'd literally gone to the media and explained my situation, so I don't think I'd care. So yeah, that feels like that ended abruptly. But that is basically all that happened. So that happened. They obviously then got home, were like, what happened? And then hypnosis revealed all of this stuff. So it's only 2 hours of their life missing. It's not like they were on the craft for ages with the opportunity for loads of things to happen to them. So yeah, that was basically it. Quite interesting to do an alien abduction story, because they're just really interesting. Like, there is no way in hell in my mind that we are the only living beings, as in like species, like this planet is not the only one that holds a living people, living things. I mean, I think that's crazy to even think that. So yeah, it's just quite cool to think, I wonder what these people actually look like, these other beings. I wonder what they're doing. I wonder what they're doing now, if they're sitting here making videos about close encounters with the humankind. But yeah, anyway. Like, can you imagine if one of them had a YouTube channel and it was like, so I flew my spacecraft down onto Earth and I saw these people and I basically abducted them, played with them a little bit, found out quite a lot about them, and this is what I found out, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, they were quite funny, but they were also really weird. Like, they'd just be so weird. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.